Hey, everybody, welcome in. It is a Monday evening and at around 6 p.m., and that can only mean one thing. That means it is time for the Texans Collective here, streaming on YouTube. It is great to be with everybody tonight as we are in Combine Week right now. Cody Stutes right there in the middle of the screen. He is in Indianapolis at the Combine. Landry Locker is en route to Indianapolis, so he won't be with us tonight. He's with us in spirit. We'll all be here together next week to recap the Combine. And, of course, Reggie Atatula, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. on In the Loop on Sports Radio 610. The three of us are with you. Cody, of course, Houston Football with Cody Stutes and SNL. Me, Sean Pendergast, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. weekdays on Sports Radio 610. Gentlemen, great to convene as always. Cody, give us before we get into the topics at large here, give us the lay of the land in Indianapolis. How's the trip so far?
It's been fantastic for me, nice and easy to get here, and then got to Indianapolis, and it is so cold. The wind just annihilates you. It's been snow flurries literally all day long. I don't think it gets above 30 at any point this week. So for all of you football weather people, it's football off-season weather, I guess, is the way it would seem. But you can already feel the buzz. Like the people in Indianapolis, everyone's like, oh, you're here for the Combine? You're here for the Combine? Mm-hmm. There's some lady trying to drag like a suitcase with three wheels up the, or over to the elevator here where we're staying in the Airbnb. And I was like, you here for the Combine and do you need help with your suitcase? He was like, oh my God, yes, please. I do this for inside the NFL and that for da-da-da. And I was like, oh, okay, great. So it's you can already start seeing the luminaries making their ways around town. And, it's, hey, what is it? Is that short guy over there, Ian Rappaport? No, that's just a regular short.
it's just some other 5'2" guy. Yeah. We would know him because Jordan Schultz would be right up in his face, giving him the look for like he did last year at the Starbucks at the Marriott or whatever it was.
Yeah, I heard they put a ring bell in at that Starbucks, so ding, ding,
dude,
they go round.
We need a rematch, man. We need a rematch. Hey, before we start digging into things, I'm assuming, Cody, that you probably got it committed to memory now because you and Landry are going to be covering this thing all week. But what does the schedule look like for the either the unindoctrinated or those that are indoctrinated but curious how it lays out this week, and what can they be looking for from you and Landry this week out there?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Almost everything starts in waves with these players, and it starts with linebackers and defensive linemen. So tomorrow you'll get a bunch of general managers, you'll get a bunch of head coaches talking at the podium to media. I say a bunch because not all of them are going to be here. D'Amico Ryans is not going to be at the NFL Combine and meet with the media. Nick Caserio will meet with the local media and talk this week. And then I already saw it today, 2 or 3 different guys on my flight here to Indianapolis from Chicago, a couple of different hopeful NFL players. And one small thing that I would note, and I'm not going to out the player, but if you're wearing slides that are too small just because they're Gucci slides, you're off my board. You're off the board. Go get shoes that fit. All right, your feet are one of the most important things for what you do. Go get shoes that fit. Okay, but defensive linemen, linebackers, they're starting to arrive to Indianapolis right now. They'll go through some medical checks, and then really all it is they'll talk, and then the next day they're working out. So linebackers, defensive linemen, they're all going to talk on Wednesday. They'll do a bunch of team interviews. They'll do a bunch of media interviews, and they'll do all their talking Wednesday. Then they'll work out on Thursday, and then they're out of here Friday. Then it's defensive backs and tight ends. Then your running backs, quarterbacks, and wide receivers, they get going on Friday. And the big fat fellas, the offensive linemen, I say that with affection, they get going on Saturday. So the day the guys talk, the next day is when they hit the field and work out. So Thursday night, that's when the underwear Olympics, as many people have coined it, that's when they get started with the actual on-field work. But until then, they're meeting with teams. They're probably talking with their agent. You'll be walking around the convention center, and you'll see guys practicing their 40 starts in the middle of the convention center. It is one of the rare times for the entire NFL descends in one place, and the Combine is a very fun and unique tentpole event to the offseason.
And the time that the order that they do this in is probably the order of importance, right? You first get your medicals out of the way, and that's the most important thing to make sure that, the injury history or whatever is clear for these guys. Then talking to these, teams to get a small indication of who they are. And then the actual underwear Olympics, as you call it, right? Getting out here and testing. It's just, can we confirm our priors from what we've seen on film? that's the importance. Although from our side, especially for those of us that are back home, we're going to be on NFL Network watching the 40 and the broad jump like it's the most important thing, aren't we?
Yeah, because you can bet on it. You can bet on it too.
Wow.
I don't know if Prize Picks has combine stuff or not. I'm gonna
check.
Yeah, but you
if I remember correctly, they usually do. They'll
Okay.
get some of your mostly about your 40 times.
40 times, maybe the number of
bench
benches
presses.
on
Yeah, I like
225.
this.
Yeah, number of reps on the bench.
Do you think that they'll have a more or less when it comes to Caden Proctor's weight? Because that's one of the big things I'm trying to find out.
They should.
You know what I mean?
That's always fun too, because then you find out which media organizations, which college media teams are just blatant liars about what they do. Because you'll go look at a college, height, weight, and the guy's like 6'5", 300, and then he gets here and he's 6'1", 280, and you're like, what happened here? Like, how did he shorten himself 4 inches? But yeah, so they do the weigh-ins, they do the the measuring, the hands, and all that kind of stuff. Start those interviews, and as Reggie mentioned, the medical checks, and some guys. I remember last year there was a whole group of defensive linemen that didn't make it to the podium because of medical rechecks. Like they started, it took them a long time. It took a lot of these guys a long time. So that's always kind of fun. So, hey, why didn't that guy get to the podium? Oh, is there something with the medicals? Like that's always something to kind of keep in the back of your mind. But it's a very unique week for them. And then their days get started early. Like some of those guys get started at 6 a.m. with some of the medicals and stuff, and then they're talking to us at like 9, and they look like a zombie. You gotta kind of like take that into account when you're talking to them.
But it's funny. You lay out the order of the week and the order that the guys are arriving. There's a different position groups arriving each day and going through that wave of processes. And I know we're going to get into some combine talk a little bit later on in this episode, but it does feel like it kind of goes in probably in some sort of ascending order of what's of interest to Texan fans, I would imagine. I think most Texan fans are probably most intrigued by the offensive side of the ball in this draft, just because that's where the reinforcements are needed right now. And you've got quarterback, wide receiver, running back on the second to last day. And then I would say the position that a lot of Texan fans are most intrigued by with the offensive line all coming in on that last day. This week almost kind of crescendos for Texan fans out there.
Yeah, it's beautiful how it builds. You can kind of find some of those hey, let's get D'Amico Ryans this, let's get D'Amico Ryans that on the defense in the first couple of days. Like, hey, I don't think they need a corner, but man, this guy, the way he talked about it and the Texans talked to him, you kind of get that. But by Saturday afternoon, I'll be like, I want that guy, I want that guy, I want that guy, I want that guy. That guy was bigger than I thought he was. That guy said he wanted to kill somebody to save his quarterback. Like, I want that guy. That'll be by Saturday afternoon. I'll have all these crushes, and then Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, I'll talk to all the offensive linemen, and my crush list will reset.
Well, you're all over it, Cody. That's why you're so good at this. You were at the Senior Bowl, you're at the Combine there, like you're all over this stuff. So people should absolutely be following you and all of your stuff to get the information and the opinion that you share out there. So that's really, really good. So we'll get to some more combine stuff later. But let's talk a little Nick Caserio. He's going to be out there in Indianapolis. He's going to meet with the media tomorrow at 11 a.m. is the estimated time. I know that that's a kind of a moving target depending sometimes, but 11 a.m. is the scheduled time for Nick Caserio. If we're not carrying it live on Sports Radio 610, I promise you that we will be carrying cuts of it shortly after it's over on In the Loop and The Drive, and then on Payne and Pendergast and on Area 45, our night show, and on Payne and Pendergast the following morning. So we'll be all over the Caserio press conferences. I know you and Landry will be as well, Cody. But an interesting question off the top, and this is this is really the beginning now with the combine, free agency in a couple weeks. I think without question, this is Nick Caserio's most important offseason as general manager, given where I think the fan base and probably ownership too feels where this team should be when January rolls around next season. And that's further than they made it this year. But it's an interesting question. Is this a make or break season for Nick Caserio? Because that's a question that comes with a level of gravitas above and beyond just, hey, it's really important.
Yeah, I mean, the answer is yes, clearly. Just look at the various different off seasons that you've had to this point. It's either been a circumstance where you are trying to get your team out of the doldrums, or you're trying to build places where you can maybe write off this is a young team. And now this is a team with expectations that have not gotten there. And I mean, arguably, they now have to make the biggest jump that there is to make, which is the small difference between Are you a pretty good team, or are you a team to be contended with? And it all kind of coincides with this time period where you're figuring out if you have a quarterback for the future. You're trying to figure out if you have, now that we're about 4 or 5 years into this, do you have particular shortcomings that are going to end up being stumbling blocks, or if those are just kind of cute things that you take note of, namely can you draft offensive linemen, things of those nature. So you're going to have to answer some questions about Nick Caserio on the way that this organization works. All the MO stuff is cute. Now we're going to find out how those MOs actually stack up now that you're starting to get receipts back in a real way. And I do wonder how much heat is actually on Nick Caserio's seat, because this is a make or break offseason, but the break of that would seem to intimate that then we're starting to head towards some level of divorce. And I'm actually not sure exactly what would be necessary for that, but this is really going to either solidify your priors on what you feel this organization is under Nick Caserio, or maybe whether you believe that they could change, whether you think that some of the offensive line issues have been the ability to get guys in and train them up versus now getting the right guys that you want in this staff to be able to get the right guys and train them up and get to good playing football. So yeah, I think it is make or break.
I look at it as a scenario too, where how many more things can you change if you don't get where you want to go? Like,
yeah,
D'Amico Ryans is nowhere close to losing his job. Yeah, you could change some more things on offense. Maybe it's the offensive staff or coaches and things like that. You tried that once, and it yielded about the same result. And yeah, you might need to change the quarterback at the end of this upcoming year. That's when D'Amico Ryans has to ask the question, is this the partner in crime that I want for selecting the next quarterback if it doesn't work? Now, if we sit here at the end of 2026, CJ Stroud failed, but we definitively say they did everything they could to keep him from failing, it's just a CJ Stroud problem, that'd be really tough to pin that on Nick Caserio. But I think back to a year ago, very important offseason, and one of Nick Caserio's familiars gets the offensive coordinator job. One of his familiars gets the offensive line coach job. And the offseason was very underwhelming until the draft. And really, when you looked at the results of the season, it was primarily the draft that propped up the results and the grading that you would give Nick Caserio from a year ago. And it's like, if you make some mistakes this year in the offseason, those ramifications last a little bit longer. Like Cam Robinson was a 1-year deal and he was gone before the season even really got going. Yeah, there's a little bit of dead money or whatever. Like that's not a long-term ramification. Like if you make a big investment in a guard, the guard's not very good and he's on your roster for the next 3-4 years, like that's a really bad spot to be in. So it becomes this tedious, like I feel like Nick Caserio's good at what he does. And I think there's some things he does extremely well that other GMs would love to be able to do to the level that Caserio does it. But I also feel like there's some weak spots in his game that if those were continuously there again, maybe you have the conversation if you're D'Amico Ryans and ultimately, maybe even ownership as well. But it's a very, it can be graded a variety of different ways and you can arrive at stay or go a couple of different routes.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that whatever, if there's a scenario, look, if they go and win a Super Bowl, nobody cares about anything. I think even if they get to a conference title game or lose at a Super Bowl, like everybody's safe, regardless of how it looks. So I think the things that we're talking about are what does the postseason look like and what does the offense look like? Those are the two biggest things that we're talking about here. And I think, this past offseason to talk about that is really interesting because I think if you look at the sum total of the moves in free agency that Nick made, there's just as many good ones that he made that match, I don't know what an acceptable ratio is, especially given the aisle that they shop in. I mean, they shop in the 1 year, $4 million aisle a lot. The three big moves that did not pan out at all, in my opinion, were Cam Robinson, Christian Kirk, and CJ Gardner-Johnson. And those were easily the three most expensive of the moves that you made. You can't do that again if you're giving contracts to Will Anderson Jr. and eventually CJ Stroud. That's the biggest thing to me for why this is a make or break offseason for Nick Caserio, because there's a good chance that this is the last offseason that he has where he still has some relatively painless maneuverability under the salary cap. You can always maneuver and you can always show. We just saw the Kansas City Chiefs open up $43 million in cap space with a stroke of a pen with Patrick Mahomes. But this stuff adds up. Ask the New Orleans Saints. Ask the Eagles in a few years. Like this stuff, doing the credit card thing, which the Texans are set up to do just fine because Nick doesn't give out deals any longer than a year or two for the most part. Unless it's to really good players like Derek Stingley Jr., Jalen Petrie, guys like that, and eventually Will Anderson and probably C.J. Stroud if he has a good enough season this year. You get enough of those, and it gets harder to do some of the things. Like right now, they can restructure 5 or 6 guys and do anything they want to in free agency.
Yeah,
those days are probably going to be gone in a year or two to be able to do it with the snap of a finger like that. So I think that's why this is so make or break for him, because he still has a lot of empty freeway to work with here, and some names out there that he can go after, and he's got good draft capital too. I mean, you got 4 of the top 69 picks. So you've got some ammunition to do some things. That's why it has to get done this year. But as far as the talk of the heat on his seat and firing, to me, that's all going to boil down to how far do you go in the playoffs and what is the offense's role in all that, good or bad. To me, it's that simple.
And it's because of his paramours in those positions on the offense. It seems like, I guess you could draw some lines to him if you so choose. I'm glad you did mention kind of some of the contractual portions of this, because I think one of the reasons, or at least that creates a certain timeline, even if we don't want to actually use the nomenclature make or break, is the way that they've gone about things in these 2-year windows with the willingness to, get to the table and sign a deal early with some of these players and maybe not quibble about the last, 4%? Is that what he says? Like the last little portion of this. Yep. Your ability to do that is also, I think, shortly coming. I think the way that the MO that they've gone to that has been helped them do things easily, it feels like that's the type of thing that you can do when you don't have to pay quarterback 25% of your salary cap or what have you. I think that they're going to have to refigure or reinvent the way that they operate as a front office, which is a whole nother thing that probably opens you to the possibility of making mistakes because you're trying to figure out how you operate. Because I don't think that this can be the standard practice in the future. So again, the reason why you probably need to get it right now, because there's not going to be a lot of room to figure out how to get those things right while you're trying to find the new normal for operating as an organization. So this is a very, very important offseason.
Yeah. And I think, Sean, your point too, and to add to Reggie as well, like I care the most about 2026 because that's the season they're about to play.
Right.
And nobody's going to get any younger than where they are right now, especially on defense, which we still expect to be excellent. So I care the most about 2026. The weight of his job is also to keep an eye on 27 and 28 and even 29 that's maybe a little far away, but certainly keep an eye on the next couple of years to make sure that this isn't just a random appearance, a random great year. Like you can build sustainable success. And like, that's the weight of the general manager job. Like he's highly compensated, and that comes with a lot of high expectations, and it comes with a lot of pressure as well. So I don't feel bad for him, but it's also like, 2026 has to be as good as possible. And you also can't drastically affect 2027 or 2028 by doing that. So have at it, Nick Caserio. So while we have high expectations, like it is important to understand that we are creating a very high level that he has to clear for success. That, if he does fall slightly under, maybe that is one where you give him a little bit of a break. Like, hey, you had to thread the needle here, and here, and you only threaded the needle a couple of times. Like, but that may still be enough.
Well, we're talking about creating those expectations. They've created those expectations for themselves. And also, someone on the chat asked, when is his contract through? This is the final year of his contract, right? Remember those conversations at the start of training camp, right? I think that those also set level of expectations to this as well.
Yeah. All right. So Caserio meets with the media tomorrow at roughly 11 a.m. Cody, I'm assuming you and Landry are going to be at that. Is that fair to assume?
Yep.
Okay. So you guys will get a chance to ask some questions. I always enjoy this because this is other than guys like you and Landry, and I'm assuming a few other Houston media members will be at Nick's press conference, but there will be several others. I would imagine he's one of the more intriguing ones for people to go talk to, given the the CJ Stroud situation, and the Texans are one of the better teams in the league. So this is fun because we get national people asking questions that maybe Nick has either heard from the local media already, or maybe ones that haven't been asked yet, or ones that have become more relevant since the last time that the local media has had a crack at Nick Caserio a few weeks ago. So Cody, I'm gonna throw it right to you. I mean, because you're gonna be there tomorrow. Like I wrote CJ Stroud extension at the very top of my list of questions, just that I expect Nick to get from one of the national or one of the non-Houston people there for sure. But I'll take it off the top from you. What are you thinking of asking? What do you think he's going to get asked that he hasn't been asked yet by maybe some people who aren't from the Houston media?
I would say I think this is to get something out of Nick Caserio, you got to be very pointed in how you do it. But I also think there's a very basic and very easy way to ask, and it's a couple of different ways. Is CJ Stroud your quarterback? Do you plan to listen to or solicit trade offers for CJ Stroud?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a very simple, easy question for the general manager if he wants to back his quarterback. To go in there, he's our quarterback. He's our quarterback in 2026. We love his body of work. Like, that's a really easy way for him to go in there and support his guy. And then inevitably the extension question will get asked. And he does not give a lot of info on that. I think we all know the fifth-year option's happening. So if somebody asks that, I think that's a waste of our time. But extension is certainly a convert. Like, would you be interested in an extension with CJ Stroud? Not are you going to breach the subject? Not are you going to ask him, but would you be interested in having that conversation?
Yeah.
Because if he says no, then boom, 2026 is the make or break year. So that's a very delicate place to be. And I think there's a lot of different things about Stroud, particularly, and the situation they're in, and the situation Stroud is in right now. That's very interesting. Until they do something with Joe Mixon, he'll get asked about Joe Mixon every single time.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of those situations where he'll get asked about Joe Mixon, and I'm sure he'll get asked about the offensive line again. And I know it was at a fan gathering, but if I'm not worried about the offensive line, you shouldn't be worried about the offensive line. Like, that rang pretty true for a long portion of the season, and they still ended up better than where they were in 24. In 25, there's still a long road to go, 25, 26. And I think there's also questions about why they haven't made changes to the coaching staff. The head coach is not here, so you're going to have to answer that question as the general manager. Why have there not been more changes to the coaching staff?
Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's probably low-hanging fruit, but I'm actually very intrigued as to the tone specifically that he takes to responding to CJ questions. Because if you remember in his kind of exit interviews, it's not like he was glowing. Neither him nor D'Amico in their final times talking to the media were particularly glowing about CJ Stroud when asked about them. So especially because we've all been in that place where the family, we could talk amongst the family a certain way, but when we get in public, we got to kind of change our tone and tenor. I do wonder if that's how he operates when we end up with more than just kind of local media talking. Does he get a little bit more defensive of CJ Stroud, or is he kind of more matter of fact in the way that it seemed like he talked about CJ Stroud in his exit, right? So I'm very interested in that, because as much as there's kind of the cliche answers that I think we're likely to get, not to say that we're definite, because we're in a lot of different uncharted territories in various different ways, but I think that we might be able to surmise some of the meanings inside of it just from tone without even just hearing the specific words that he utilizes.
I'm hopeful that whatever line of Joe Mixon questioning there is leads to some sort of either questions or, as revealing as Nick Caserio is going to be, which is typically not very much, on what their plan is for that position at running back. What does he think of the draft class at running back? What does he think of this free agency class at running back? Again, I don't know how much of his cards he's going to show on the free agent side of things, because we're talking about negotiations and things like that. And also, I don't know that he's allowed to say anything until March 9th about anybody specifically. In fact, I'm sure he can't. So I don't know how specific he's going to get, but any window into how he's approaching running back and offensive line as it pertains to the draft or free agency, I'm here for as well. Just something that gives us a little bit of something. If nothing else, it acknowledges the importance that they upgrade those positions, because I don't think D'Amico was very shy over the second half of the year when he wasn't happy with how certain parts of the team were working. Hell, just ask the defense. He had the best defense in football, and it felt like for the last 4 weeks of the season, he talked about them like they were the 2010 Texans. Like he was the best part of the team, and he was not afraid to throw criticism their way. And I think similarly, I think sometimes the improvement of the offensive line got a little bit overblown this year. And you could tell, we saw the interview Cole Popovich did with John Harris and Mark Vandermeer, where they asked him about how improved the offensive line is. And he's like, he's like, okay, I guess. So, I mean, I think my point is, I think they know. Look, Nick's not a dummy. He's been in football a long time. I think he knows where improvements are needed. I'll just be curious to what extent he acknowledges that and what kind of window he gives into how they intend to approach it. Because we know they need running backs and they need offensive linemen. We know that.
It's funny though, because you talk about how, he was hard on the defense, and, sometimes the output of the offensive line and so on forth was kind of exalted by DeMeco Ryans also, right? I think that it was of their own doing. I think that's going to be an interesting way. Do you think that they'll ask him specifically about DeMeco not being there? Because I think that's also a question that I'd be very interested into how
Cody's
he would answer.
Be there. Okay, Cody can ask him.
Yeah, well, you've had three really impressive draft classes. Why the change to the draft process?
Yeah.
I mean, it is a change from the norm. I mean, you think about obviously what they did in 2023 with Will Anderson and CJ Stroud at the top. I think a lot of less smart and less talented people could have done that, but to get Tank Dell, Henry To'o has been turned into a nice role player for them. Obviously, Kamari Lassiter and Kalen Bullock, and then Jaden Higgins and Ariante Ursary. I really like Jalen Noel. Woody Marks was a key piece. Like, they've had a lot of outside the first round success, and it's like, well, why is the process changing now?
Yeah, the only thing I would say is, and this is totally me just spitballing. One, this I know because Nick has said this on our show. He doesn't think much of the combine. Period. Like, he doesn't. Sure. He is now. He's there, and he's going to do the press conference. He thinks the drills are stupid. He thinks they're ridiculous. Sure. He literally said on our show that sometimes he hopes that guys run slow 40 so he can draft him in the second round, like Kamari Lassiter. So
didn't Joe Shane do one of those?
Was that?
Didn't Joe Shane do one of those on one of these Hard Knockses?
Yeah. Like, hey, it's where you hope, like, okay, the EBITDA for this company is bad, but it's a good company. You know what I mean? Like, I'd still buy the stock. I like their product. So that we know, like, Nick doesn't think very much of the combine to begin with. I think the thing they take the most away from the combines are the 15-minute interviews with guys. And I don't know what the mechanics of that are, but it's easy enough. I'm sure they record. I know they record all of them for a fact. They record all of them.
Right.
So DeMeco's going to be able to watch any of these that, he may even be in on a Zoom for as far as we know, so he may have just been, man, there's no reason for me to go to Indy. Just bring me into Zoom on these and I can watch the interviews and chime in. I might get, they've got like 15 people in the room. So my guess is each guy gets maybe a question or two at the most,
Famously, a year ago, Nick Caley was on Zoom and you drafted 4 offensive players that ended up being pretty good football players. So, being there, not necessarily a necessity. I also think it's interesting too, like, and this is a very small thing, but they sent Cole Popovich, they sent Frank Ross to the Senior Bowl.
Yeah.
And I wonder if, hey, they played a little bit better on the offensive line. They nailed the Ariante Ursary evaluation. First time they really nailed a draft pick at the offensive line. Like, a little bit more Cole Popovich time with some of these offensive linemen, maybe not a bad thing.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned too, the Zooms, the ability to look it back. The one thing I do think about though is, we have multiple instances of DeMeco Ryans, like, from a personality, from a who's this guy standpoint, falling in love with a player.
Right.
And so, this eliminates one opportunity to kind of fall in love with the guy. I think the best example is Will Anderson.
Yeah, and I do think that's better done in person. I'm only bringing up Zoom as a mechanism for him to have a presence there.
Sure.
But you're absolutely right, Cody. Like, I think the part that you're talking about is much better, for whatever reason, is much better sniffed out being in the same room with the guy.
Yeah, the 30 visit,
Yeah, and they'll get and they'll get a crack at it. They'll narrow it down to the list, and they'll get a crack at it. Sure.
Yeah, I do wonder too, like, is it just the scouting guys that decide, those 30s, or like, have they had some guys maybe in the past couple of times where DeMeco Ryans has been here, where he's like, man, that 15 minutes flew by. Like, get that guy to Houston. Like, let's spend a day with him.
Okay, we're probably going to get Nick at some point between the combine and free agency on the show. That's a good question for him, I think. I don't think that's an out of bounds question either. Like, how do you determine the guys that you invite for the 30? Who does give the, what's that look like? That's a good one. I like that. Sure.
Yeah, and I mean, you hit on one of the big things for me, which is D'Amico has been kind of set up as some level of human LiDAR of sorts that has just a supernatural, to some degree, ability to intuit who are the right guys to to tie into. That feels like that could be a missed opportunity, not just because of, and maybe you could say they probably have less of a need in the draft this year, so maybe they can slim that down. But also, don't they talk about how these relationships are the ones that they help develop, not just for who they draft this year, but then if you see someone in free agency later on, or if you're interested in getting a player, like these are all the foundations that you have, which makes me, because they've established that they value at least these conversations, even if they don't value the combine at large. So it makes it feel like him staying back, there is some level of significance to it that obviously we're not going to have any level of intelligence on. Is it like a personal matter? All right, that's fine. Is it something where they're still trying to hone in on what is happening with the staff or something like that? I could see that being the case where they're still trying to, because again, there were minimal changes to this staff. And I have a hard time believing that that's all it was, right? You can have the same people and change the way that you do business. And I feel like there's probably something else outside of just, we felt like D'Amico wasn't necessary in Indianapolis for this change to be the case.
All right, Cody, you ready to lay a little prize picks on the people here?
Yeah, so prize picks, you play your first 5, you get 50 in bonus lineups head your way when you sign up with our code Texans. You see that down below there on the screen. What is prize picks? You're making a couple of predictions more or less on various given stats, and they got everything. I know it's not football season, but they got basketball. Baseball's right around the corner. Soccer, hockey, so many different things, even MMA, like the other night when Reggie and I put together a fantastic winner.
Look at that. Okay.
And some basketball.
Man.
Sean Strickland with more on the significant strikes. Kevin Durant with more on the points, rebounds, and assists. And Reggie and I put a little two-step together for a dub the other night on Prize Picks. It is
so you get
so
Sean
fun.
Strickland more than on F-bombs in the press conference as well?
That one was the little green demon because you had to, that was likely to occur.
Not good value in that one. It doesn't increase the payout very much.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
But as you see it, it's just rebounds or points or rebounds and assists or points, rebounds, and assists. That's for basketball. But again, they have so many different things for you. Basketball, soccer, tennis, if that's what you like. You can even get on MLB spring training. MMA and so much more.
Real sicko behavior.
That's hardcore right there.
Real sicko behavior.
MLB spring training. Well, you know what? I'm looking at it right now, and as I sift through the various sports that you can, they got bowling on here. They've got cricket on here. They've got darts. Darts. I'm going to click on darts for a second. Oh, yeah. If I want Luke Littler more than 4 180s thrown, it's there for me to do. If I want Luke Humphreys more than 3 180s thrown, bingo.
Nice.
Now they do have this too.
Triple 60s, right? Yeah.
What's that?
Yeah.
Triple 60s is what we're looking for there, right?
I guess so. Yeah. I guess. Yeah. That sounds right. Sure. I played some cricket back in the day. Sounds good. They have season plays on MLB for if you want to put together a lineup of 6 guys and their home run totals. They've got all the big swingers on here, man, including Yordan Alvarez. So if you want to put together like a 6-person, that's a nice long-term investment to have, man. A couple $100 on some more and less stands on some season totals for some players. Anyways, I say all that to say it's pretty cool shit, man.
If you want to be a real sicko, spring training wise, remember that Joe Espada has the Astros running a lot on the bases.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Look at that. That's handicap.
You see what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
We might be able to get the stolen bags thing going.
Yes. Oh, I love that.
That's incredible. Oh, man. Before we keep going, shot a couple of super chats here as well.
Let's go.
Jake Asman, who is at the NFL Scouting Combine. Come on, get in here, Jake. He's staying at the
Hey, what's up, man?
Oh, no way. He's in the house.
He's staying at the Airbnb with us. He says, will Stoots get his ass on a Lime scooter in Indianapolis?
Are those little rental scooters that you can get and you just drop them off at the place? Okay.
Yes, it is. It's a great way to travel around downtown Indianapolis. This is a really well put together town. Everything's right downtown.
What do you work
Very easy to move
for
around.
the Bureau of Travel? What the hell's happening here?
No, just, hey, Cody, just don't turn into one of those guys that when they start talking about moving the combine, that starts lobbying on Twitter to leave it in Indianapolis, like Field Yates and guys like that.
I will be lobby guy. I'll be lobbying.
You will?
I can't Lime scooter in Huntington Beach or whatever.
You're lobbying. You're lobbying on Twitter for something that only people that go to the combine care about.
That's why he needs to lobby. So because those people don't know, they don't understand.
Yeah, but what are you expecting? You get sympathy from your audience? Like, I gotta get on this initiative.
Yes.
No, I'm looking for big Parks and Rec to back me up here. Give me a little on the side.
Hey, who did Jake piss off recently that I saw on Twitter? Yes, I saw him talking to somebody. He was pissing off somebody. I forget.
It could have been any number of people with him.
No, I know. It was challenging somebody. It had to do with the Jets thing, and he was challenging. He was challenging somebody about the season Aaron Glenn just had, and basically saying
Jake's favorite thing is, what does Aaron Glenn do well as a head coach?
Yeah, but he was pissing somebody off about this, and he'll know. Well, maybe he will. He maybe pisses everybody off. I love Jake, but but I saw it. I'm like, you go, Jake. Get him.
Oh, couple more super chats here. Sir Wags, who's your favorite coach to talk to at the combine?
Ooh,
I'll be interested to see, John Harbaugh and his new digs. He's going to be the Giants' new head coach. So that'll be intriguing. I don't know if he's like super fun or interesting. Yeah. Robert Saleh has previously not gone to the combine, and he is here with the Titans. So be interested to see what he could bring to the table.
You should ask him. Your first question would be, so what are you doing here? That's what you should ask him. You should ask him just like that.
Why is it important you're here now when you didn't come in your last job?
Have Jake ask him, because that probably was Jake's question back when he was the Jets head coach. Yeah.
or just let's continue to stoke the fires that are Robert Saleh, Liam Cohen. Something to that end.
Yes.
Yeah. Old Bob Saleh going at the same time as the man that replaced him. By the way, Aaron Glenn and Robert Saleh, 2 podiums away from each other.
Oh, no way.
Yep. Yep. 2 podiums away from each other with John Harbaugh in the middle. So.
Oh, wow.
Really? What a little bang 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 right there.
You need to pull a Berman and go to Aaron Glenn's press conference and then scurry over to Robert Saleh's press conference and say, so I just asked Aaron Glenn about what it was like when he first got there, and this is what he said about what you left behind for him.
How does that make you feel?
How does it make you feel? That's the Berman double dip right there. If you get so-and-so said this, how does that make you feel? Like
that's just good journalism.
That's the 2-question parlay with Berman for sure.
Sir Wags has one more. He says, great to see Cody and the collective. What's the difference in contract from first and second round? Is there more focus on hitting in free agency or draft? Though the biggest difference is the first round picks have that 5th-year option. So you get a 5-year contract with them, and instead of a 4-year contract, and it's cost controlled. You're allowed to plan. You can plan it out a little bit better, and obviously as you go lower in the draft, the less and less money you pay the guys. So it's a little bit cheaper to go in the second round, but you don't have that 5th year as well. So that's the biggest thing. And then I think for the Texans right now, I don't want to speak for you guys, but they have to hit in this free agency class and they have to hit in this draft to go where they want to go in 2026.
Yeah, but free agency is going to hurt more when you miss. Like that's ultimately the big thing, right? And that's what we've seen historically. That is the pitfall of all of us really wanting them to swing really big on free agents, whether it's Linderbaum or whether it's Kenneth Walker or Breece Hall, is that when you miss in free agency, it costs a lot and it costs over a long time. And it's also a dude who's probably a little bit further along, a little bit further away from the window where somebody says, I can fix him. So there's less opportunities for you to get off that player unless you attach like a pick to their lapel. So yeah, that is, I think there is significantly more impetus to hit in free agency than there is the draft. I think
the cost is a great point. Although I will say this about this draft, want, I don't know if it's a need to hit, but for perception, the want to hit on that 38th overall pick, because it was the Laramie Tunsil trade. I think in the end, it doesn't matter, like, on your record, like whether you hit on that one and not 59, or you miss on 28, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't, like, you're going to hit on some, you're going to miss on others. Which ones you hit or miss on don't necessarily correlate to your record, although you can't miss first rounders all the time. That one, though, like, just from the perception of the fan base and people around football, like, if they come away with a big time contributor with that 38th overall pick, let's say they draft you Darian Price, the running back out of Notre Dame, and he becomes your starting running back next year, which I think is in play, 100% in play.
Oh yeah.
Then that trade's a success, in my opinion. Even with Tunsil being rated the 56th best player by Pro Football Focus, I could give two shits about that. I'd do the trade 10 times over again with Laramie Tunsil.
Well, remember, it wasn't about the player; it was about the money. And you know how you fix. You know how you fix. You make it 100% that you're gonna win that in the court of opinion there. Trade 38. Yeah, I mean, that's how you do it. You trade 38, so there's not that direct. That's how you do it.
You make it harder to connect all the dots.
You just keep passing the money. You keep wiring the money around accounts so that people can't follow.
Laundering picks.
Yeah.
Caserio shell picks.
Caserio's making all his picks from the Cayman Islands. Yes.
One last super chat. We'll keep it rolling here. So Wags wants to, do we get a food review spot, Cody?
Oh.
I'll find something here in Indianapolis to food review for the people.
Not St. Elmo's. You're not going to Steakhouse, are you?
No, not.
It's a little too cliche. That's why it's good.
The St. Elmo's shrimp cocktail has been reviewed a million times, including by myself a year ago.
Yes. Yeah.
Also, where is that shrimp from?
Good question.
I learned my lesson in Lubbock, Texas, a number of years ago about eating seafood in places where they don't got seafood around, like they don't got water around.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's not a Lubbock issue. That was a me issue. I was idiot ordering crawfish etouffee in Lubbock, Texas. What the hell was I doing?
Yeah, no, that's an issue. Not an ish me or ish Lubbock.
Ish Lubbock. Oh shit. All right, good. We appreciate everybody in the super chat sending in the questions. All right, so let's hit these last couple topics. We kind of touched on No D'Amico at the combine already. I would say I think we've hit that one pretty good. So we know he's not going to be there, and we may or may not find out a little bit more as to why when Nick meets with the media tomorrow. So let's hit the combine itself. The biggest combine questions, and I'd say we can hit this from a Texans angle. And if there's one big one, or if any of us have ones that we think are going to kind of overtake things at the combine over the next few days, I'm all for throwing that in. To me, I'm curious this with you, Cody, with being there. I just remember back to 2023 and having, especially because the Texans were so bad and had 2 first-round picks, you've got your list of players that I want to go see at the podium. And it was really important at that time because one of them was going to be a quarterback. Obviously, that's not the case anymore. But I would imagine that there's going to be some offensive linemen and running backs that they trot out there for these press conferences. Are you putting a particular list together of guys that you're looking to go see and ask questions to?
Absolutely. I think a lot of times you kind of build that like that master list of like, these are the guys at like this spot where the Texans could pick like at 28, there's a couple of right tackles, a couple of maybe left tackles that can play right tackle, and like Kenyon Sadiq, the tight end from Oregon. It's like you kind of put that list together, but certainly on the offensive line, the way I think about it is more tackle centric, just because they're coming off of a young tackle having a lot of success, and they tried to basically make Titus Howard a guard a year ago. It's like a lot of the tackles, specifically guys that played right tackle, are the ones that really jump off the page to me. Blake Miller, the guy at Clemson, all-time snaps leader at Clemson. I mean,
wow,
that's a record that probably is going to stay forever.
Well, he must have had did he have a COVID year in there and stuff like that? Did he have?
I'm sure there's extra stuff in there.
Yeah.
54 games played at right tackle for Dabo Sweeney at Clemson.
I mean, that's 4 seasons.
It feels pretty significant. And you think about like, okay, Arion Tyrusri played a ton at at Minnesota last year, and it's like, do they value that a little bit more? Max Ahanachor, the right tackle from Arizona State, there's a Senior Bowl standout, and Cole Popovich stood 10 feet away and watched Ahanachor dominate guys, the day that he was there. So it's like, okay, love to talk to him, see if the Texans caught up with him again here at the Combine. And then that's kind of, that's a guy that's kind of 28. That's a guy that's kind of 38. And then you kind of mosey over to some like, they were pretty interested in Tyler Booker reportedly last year. They never got a crack at him. Maybe there was a trade-up idea. So it's like, okay, like, is there an offensive lineman that if they matriculated down the board, so, if Spencer Fano fell, would they go make that move for him? If Maui Noah fell, the Miami offensive tackle, would they make that move for him? Vega Ione, the guard from Penn State, widely considered to be the top guard. They were in on a guard last year. Would they make that? Would they make that trade up? So I kind of build it out that way, and then it's just try to find guys that you're interested in, and I think Landry's done an excellent job of like how many like connections do they have to maybe players that have played on the Texans already, or coaches or things like that. So he's got like a little spider web that he's built to kind of build out his list.
I like the spider web idea.
Yeah, like how many? I mean, like
a family tree almost.
Yeah. So he's got some really good stuff for there. So he's putting together a list like that. But yeah, I kind of build it off of that first pick, that 28th pick, and then sort of that kind of wish list stuff, and then it's 38. You got to talk to as many running backs as possible, because you could take one anywhere from 38 to 250, whatever. They're last.
You talk about dropping. If Jeremiah Love drops in a reasonable range to go get, I think that's one that I would absolutely do.
I feel you. That just feels so out of the possibility in my brain. But of course,
I get it.
Yeah, it's happened before. I remember when CeeDee Lamb, there was no way he was going to make it to a certain place, and then all of a sudden you see him. What was it, like 17? Something crazy like that.
Picked, yeah.
So yeah, these things happen in the league. I mean, the thing that I feel like I'm just ultimately looking at is, I think I'm going to be the weirdo that's looking for height and weight and arm length, especially when we start talking about offensive line, because those are the types of things that could change where guys are, or how people feel about certain guys that might have some guys, quote unquote, drop in people's favorability on people's boards. And that'll give us a little bit of a better idea where some of these guys will be available for the Texans to possibly, add to their offensive line. Also, I don't know how much of this will show up in the Combine, in the week of the Combine, but also I'm just consistently interested in the dudes who are tackles that people feel like, yeah, they might be best suited at guard, and what kind of drills might ultimately point to that, because that is one of those things that I think could be interesting, especially in a draft where at least the nominal guards right now, there's not a ton of them. Are there more guard opportunities with the dude who's currently listed as a tackle, right? Does some of that pop up in the possibility of drafting?
One really fun thing about that, Reggie, is there was a lot of talk that Blake Fisher should play guard, and the Texans were adamant he was a tackle, and it really hasn't worked out. And then there was a lot of talk that Ariante Ursary might need to play guard. They were adamant that he was a tackle, and it ended up working out for him. So It seems like they have been a little hesitant, depending on who the player is, to kind of switch that position. And then, of course, they have Titus Howard play like 3 of the 5 different positions in one season. Right. So, it's not like it's a total X on the conversation.
Well, no, that's a good point. Also, just who ends up being running back too, because we all think it's Jadarian Price, but you never know. Sometimes somebody comes out and shakes it up.
Yeah, no, you never know. That's true. Caden Proctor is one I'm anxious to see do some of these drills at 370 or whatever he is, because he's another one. Seth and I do the mock draft injection every day at 7:45, and the one we did today was I forget who's it. Well, it was Nate Tice and McDonald from Yahoo, kind of going back and forth doing dueling pianos.
Yep.
And I think it was McDonald doing the evens, and he had them taking Proctor at 28. And I guess, question about conditioning, and is he a guard? Is he a tackle? I just know I want to see a dude 6'7", 370 doing that 3-cone drill. I'm doing the 40. Wow. I like big men rumbling, stumbling, bumbling. That's my fetish at the
let's well, I'm gonna leave that one alone. Let's see if he's 370. It's like show up at the Combine at 400, and all of a sudden you're not even a first or a second rounder.
Right. Yeah. Like, yeah. He's even pushing away from the table a little bit.
Yeah, so like
prior to the
that's
combine.
another thing. It's like show up in shape, and then
Yeah.
let's see what drills you do.
Who do we expect the spectacle to be at the combine? It feels like every year at the combine, there's at
Ooh.
least one spectacle. Whether it's, hey, can't wait to watch this guy run the 40. More often than not, it's I got to be at this guy's press conference. Shador was obviously the spectacle last year, and it did not, ultimately did not work out well for him. Um, and I think in years past, it's whoever. I think like C.J. Stroud, the year he was coming out, I think that was a big one that people wanted to. That was a big press conference people wanted to be at, to see his press conference, just because he was going to be one of the top 2 picks in the draft. So I think him and Bryce that year. Is it just too easy to say it's Fernando Mendoza this year, and there's really not anybody else that's going to kind of draw that bug zapper effect of everybody flying in like that?
I mean, being the only quarterback that
Right.
of note, I think is probably a good measuring stick of like, hey, he's going to be a huge deal, and they're going to talk about it. But I think the reports this week that both Jeremiah Love and Arvell Reese, I think everybody anticipates are going to have incredible showings in like everything that they do. Both those guys working out. Like, this is a much deeper linebacker class than we've seen in recent years. So like, you may see some nasty linebackers go out there and put up some incredible physical numbers and like kind of turn some heads.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I'm sitting here thinking, it's like, okay, well, Aziz has got 1 year left on his contract, and Henry To'o has got 1 year left on his contract, and D'Amico Ryans used to play linebacker, and it's like pretty easy. I know that the workouts don't matter as much for some of them, but if it gets you a couple extra eyeballs on the tape and they show what they can do in the workouts on tape, it does get you kind of excited.
Yeah.
I don't know if Mendoza will be the spectacle because he's not throwing. I do wonder if Ty Simpson will be in it, because a lot of people are wondering, is he that number 2 quarterback, and where does he sit? I wonder also, because I'm trying to think who's fast. And I mean, I'm not going to pretend and play in your face like I know all the dudes who are just the fast dudes, but I know Carnell Tate is one of those dudes that has an opportunity to go and put a really interesting number when he gets out here running. I think that's a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, sometimes you look up at the end of the defensive line day and you're like, oh yeah, I forgot that all those defensive ends and defensive tackles are actually the most spectacular athletes on the field because they can move the tremendous amounts of weight. Like, this should be an extremely athletic defensive tackle crew. And then, defensive ends, if you were thinking about, we talked about it earlier, you got to worry about 2026, but you got to worry about 2027, 2028 too. Like a defensive end somewhere on day 2 or day 3, early in day 3 or on day 2, I mean, totally in play for the Houston Texans.
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't know that there's, I don't know that there's a position there's some that are more in play than others, I think. But like, even at 28, like if Sadiq was there at 28 and they wanted to go with a tight end and they took Sadiq, I would be for that.
I might throw a party.
Yeah, I don't know that he's there, but that's kind of the area of the draft that he's been going in these mock drafts. So like, if he were there, I don't think they need to draft a receiver with any of that. That's probably the one position that if they used, and I'm talking picks 28, 38, and 59, like the first and second round picks. That might be the one position where I'd be like, what are you doing? It's all second and third round picks that you've used over the last few years.
No corner.
Probably not corner. Although that is one position where the guy at least would get on the field, probably in nickel and dime situations. Maybe, I don't know. Or maybe they like Jalen Smith still in that spot that they took last year. So corner would definitely be down the list. Wide receiver would be down the list for sure. Anything else is a quarterback, obviously, but anything else, like if one of those linebackers gets pushed down to 28, I think there's a lot of times D'Amico would like having 3 linebackers out on the field. He just doesn't have 3 that he feels great about putting out there all the time, and Aziz and Toa both have 1 year left, as of right now, at least 1 year left on their deals. That can change, obviously, if they do any sort of extension or anything like that. But safety, I would be all for a safety at one of those 3 spots, I think. And I think defensive, anywhere along the defensive line, especially on the interior, I would be for that too. So there's not a lot that I feel is off limits with those 3 premium picks right now.
As the chat notes as well, a Jalen or a Jaden?
Yeah. Have we looked? Have we done it? Have you put your power rankings of Jalen or Jaden's in this draft together?
So coming out of the Senior Bowl, I had the Power Jenkins. That was a creation of Mr. Lockers. Yeah, Power Jenkins. We may have to update the Power Jenkins
Yes.
after the combine and just kind of see where all the Jalen's and Jaden's kind of
So it's just Jalen's and Jaden's that qualify for that.
right. And there's there's a bunch of different ways you could spell Jalen and Jaden. So
No, it's true.
buddy,
As
don't
we've
I know
learned.
it. Yeah.
As
Yeah.
we...
and then someone else says must have an Iowa State player maybe.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Brees Hall might fill that if they go. You can go get your Iowa State player either in the draft or in free agency. Like anything. And
So that is one little like quick nugget I wanted to toss in, like because this is also like free agent rumor time. Just kind of say, a lot of people in Baltimore expect Linderbaum to stay. Tyler Linderbaum.
really,
Yeah, it's like a big desire to be a Raven.
Mhm.
If they're close, just go ahead and take the deals. You're a member of the Baltimore Ravens and keep it moving. And then the people with the Jets fully expect Brees Hall to have some sort of tag applied to him, either the franchise tag, so it's exclusive, or the transition tag, which gives the Jets basically the right to match the contract. So
yeah, we'll probably know. The franchise tag deadline is a week from tomorrow, I think, if I'm not mistaken, right? Isn't it March 3rd, I thought?
That sounds right.
To apply the franchise tag?
That sounds right.
Is that the
it's got
deadline?
to be getting pretty close. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Opens on the 17th, closes on the 3rd.
Yeah.
3rd of March, yeah. So, I mean, when we convene next Monday night, we'll probably have a pretty solid idea as to who the premium names that are going to be available are. Because there are some premium names, but like Trey Hendrickson, does he hit the market? That kind of thing. If Linderbaum is going back to Baltimore and Brees Hall is getting franchise tagged, and two or three more franchise tags get doled out, and it's this kind of the thing. It is there's rarely do the big time guys hit free agency at all, but we are up for overpay season to begin at that point. Although it's funny, I saw two things today. The Athletic had their list of the top 10 guys at each position that had projected contracts. You guys, I know you guys have probably seen these. Top 10 at each position, projected contracts. And Barnwell did his tiers of free agents on offense. He hadn't done defense yet, at least that I've seen. He did offense. Ed Ingram in the Barnwell article was in tier 6, tier 5, which is basically like a highly functioning bench guy where guards go for $2 to $4 million. And the Athletic didn't have Ed Ingram in their top 10 interior offensive linemen. And the bottom of that barrel was going for like 1 year, $7 million or whatever. So, now these are just two, I forget whose article it was in the Athletic. I know it was Barnwell and ESPN. So these are just two guys' opinions, but they're pretty educated opinions. They've been doing this for a long, long time. They have, I'm sure, got a pretty decent evaluatory eye when they're looking at a guy and how he did this year. Neither of them see Ed Ingram as anything more than probably about what he was making this year, maybe a little bit more than that.
I feel like from a 30,000-foot view, you go, that offensive line still wasn't that good. So how strong is one of the better players on that offensive line if the offensive line still wasn't all that great? Plus, I wonder if they were doing the thing that I was doing where I was not giving him too much of the benefit of the doubt of the last handful of games started kind of tailing back down for him, where maybe they used that in some level of confirmation bias of, see, not that good. That was a period of time where he just kind of was playing above his head. Yeah. Or, you could do the thing where maybe you're a little bit more fair or just a little bit, more giving and saying that, is there a possibility that over a long grueling season that there was something underlying, there's an issue, something like that injury that maybe brought his play back down. But all of that is interpretation that you have to make in free agency. And it seems like from the national lens, they're like, yeah, it's a dude that I felt like was bad, played pretty well for a little while and might have been bad again,
Yeah.
Yeah, and we say all this, and then all of a sudden, some team comes out of nowhere and gives Ed Ingram 4 years, $16 million average annual value.
No.
It's like, oh, okay.
Hey, we say all this to say the Raiders exist. All right, we acknowledge that.
And offensive line is just one of those positions where there's only so many of them, right?
Yep. So, all right, fellas. Well, this was fun as always. Cody, enjoy the rest of the week in Indianapolis. We look forward to all of your work. What can the folks that subscribe to Houston football, and if people want to subscribe, this is a great week to do it, I would imagine.
Yeah, we'll do tons of stuff on the newsletter/website from a written standpoint. Obviously, the Houston football YouTube account as well. And then SNL will be live from the Combine all this week. And we'll actually have SNL in about an hour here, a little special Monday night edition to get you ready for tomorrow as the Combine kicks off. And then Wednesday, it really just turns into a sprint and talking to all the players and all that fantastic stuff. So it'll be great. And I do have one super chat to get to before we wrap up here.
Oh, good.
One more time from Sir Wags. When players skip drills, does it impact them? I don't think too terribly much of it because eventually guys do it at their pro day. And certainly from the Texans standpoint, I don't think it matters that much.
Doesn't mean squat to the Texans. Caserio thinks the drills are stupid, basically. So yeah, it doesn't mean anything to them.
And usually the dudes who have the temerity to not do this know that they have the juice to not do it. You know?
Yeah. Well, one of the Miami guys I don't think is going at all to the Combine. I'm trying to remember which one. I mean, they've got a few guys that are pretty high up there. I thought I saw this. Who knows? Maybe I saw it on some account that didn't know what the hell they were talking about. But so yeah, anyways. All right, cool. Well, Cody, that sounds awesome. Yeah, subscribe to Cody's stuff, man. You just put it in such consumable morsels in your write-ups that you do. It's fucking awesome, man. You do a great job.
Thank you.
It's awesome. And Reggie Atatula does a great job as well. 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Are the hoes in Indianapolis this week, Reggie, or what's going on?
Look, the Combine is not for the hoes, man. That is not. With all due respect to Jake and Cody and Landry, that's not where the host is at.
Right.
Reggie got the whole Combine this week.
Yeah.
I feel like if there was a Combine, Indianapolis would be very, very low on the list of places to host the whole Combine.
I need to know the drills at the Ho Combine.
Boy, I do too. I would like to help orchestrate some of these drills.
Oh, my God. All right. We are done. You can catch Reggie 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. on In the Loop, Cody Stutes, of course, Houston Football, Cody Stutes, and SNL. Later on tonight, what time's the stream tonight, Cody?
Let me do my East Coast Central time.
Yep.
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock. Okay. 9 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Central.
Eastern.
8 o'clock back here in Houston,
Yep.
where it's a comfy 50 degrees outside. Right now. That was a jerk move by me. Sorry about that, Cody. All right. You guys can catch me 6 a.m. tomorrow morning with Seth Payne on Payne and Pendergast on Sports Radio 610. Quick reminder to everybody, give us a like, give us a subscribe, give us a 5-star review, do all those things that help keep this thing moving. We really enjoy doing it. Some nice numbers tonight, so good to see everybody jumping in here. We thank everybody who's in the chat, especially the super chats jumping in there. And a reminder to download the Prize Picks app and put in the code Texans so you get your $50 in free lineups for just playing a $5 lineup. Football is over, but Prize Picks goes every day, all year long. Tons of sports, including darts. Darts. All right. So I think with that said, 7:10 now. Rockets getting ready to start here. I believe, Cody, it is time to end stream.